Doing well on this Valentine's Day. Yours truly is having a quiet Valentine's Day, but that's what happens when you're 62 years old and don't have a significant other in your life and all along those lines. So definitely that is what's going on here on this Valentine's Day. But I know a lot of people are enjoying their day and some people are still enjoying the celebration of the Super Bowl. It's my understanding that maybe even after the Super Bowl that Usher got married or something along those lines. I saw that on some of the social media posts and all along those lines, and whether that was a true thing or whether that was just things that people were uh, speculating and all along those lines. We'll have to find out and see whether that was the case or that's just something that I saw online. It was one of those things that was people were putting out there since a lot of people were expecting Travis Kelsey and Taylor Swift to get married and all along those lines, or at least there to be a big engagement and all in that space. But yeah, it does look like it is very much true that Usher and Jennifer, and I'm totally gonna mess up the name, but it looked like Gokachia got married and tied the knot in Vegas right after the Super Bowl. So, wow, some folks may have been wanting that for Travis Kelsey and Taylor Swift. It looks like Usher and his longtime partner married in Las Vegas after the Super Bowl. So they did get that Super Bowl wedding that they were looking for. And all along that line, it just wasn't the one that they were expecting. But then again, would you want to be Taylor Swift and have to say yes or no in front of, however many millions or billions of people were watching that particular game? And of course, the weather is in the news and politics is in the news as well. Because I know right now we've had a couple of little cold spells in the nighttime. So I think this evening we might be in the lower 30s or something like that. And all in that space, or maybe the high 30s. And definitely there has been some cold weather here in Durham, North Carolina. But during the day, it's been in the mid 50s. And I know some of the places that some of our guests have come from, it's been a lot colder and all in that way. So I'm going to bring in my first guest for the day. I've got two of them, and there might be some others that pop in. But I'll bring in Martin Carlson and see how he's doing and whether he's having the luck on this Valentine's Day and all in that space. Because like I said, I'm still in that single space, even in the early 60s and all along those lines. So I know that for us single folks, Valentine's Day can be a wonderful day. And sometimes it's a day where we're sitting there going like, heck, this is the day that we got to regret because we don't have that significant other to take out to dinner and all in that space. But I was talking to some friends that are in the married lane, and they were saying that it was too expensive and that the restaurants were too crowded. So I know one of the gentlemen here on the network that he was going to take his wife out. He does our chess show and our investment show and a show about Ukraine and Russia. So he's going to take her out, his longtime wife, on the day after Valentine's Day. And I know some other people that were going to do that as well. So how are you doing on this particular day, Martin? And are you one of those folks that is enjoying Valentine's Day, or you just sitting there going like, dang on, it's another Hallmark holiday and I'm glad that it's over or it's about to be over?
Great to be here, Mark, and definitely kind of in the middle. I'm living the single life right now, but lucky, my parents are visiting, so we're gonna go out for dinner. We're gonna show them around Austin, Texas, for a few days. So a lot to look forward to today and the next couple of days. But usually for Valentine's Day, I watch like a scary movie because I never ever watched those for Halloween. But I say I'm gonna like go the other direction and have some fun and watch my Bloody Valentine or something like that.
Hey, and Valentine's can play and romance can play a part in horror movies because I was never a big fan of It, and that was one of those horror movies that actually scared me away from horror movies. And ironically, I've been a judge for a number of years for the Nevermore Festival here in Durham, which is about horror and fantasy and all along those lines. But yeah, when It first came out, the original It, I think it scared me off of horror movies for a while, and Carrie didn't help any either, and definitely not The Exorcist. With the spinning head and all along those lines. So there's been a couple of those horror movies that are classics that kind of paid me away from horror movies. But like I said, I've been a judge, so I've actually gotten past that fear to some degree, even though they can still give you those nightmares and all along those lines.
If you look to, this is my well-designed angle here, but to my right is my bookshelf, and I have about 10 Stephen King books. So you were definitely on the same page with it terrifying me as a kid, and it still does at 40 years old.
Still terrorizes you even to this particular point and all along those lines. Like I said, the online dinner party, I get different people to come by, share their stories and what they're all about, and we just kind of kick it and talk about a number of things. I've got two other folks that'll be joining us very shortly and everything, but definitely if you'll share a little bit about your story, and I've got some questions based on that story, and maybe if you got some thoughts about the Super Bowl, because like I said, you're from Austin, Texas, so I'm sure you probably were rooting for the Dallas Cowboys back in the day and everything, but it looks like the Chiefs won. They won in overtime which is a rarity in the Super Bowl history, but they did pull off that back-to-back win and all in that space. And like I said, I just recently found out because I was looking on Instagram and some other social media sources about Usher's wedding right after he did that amazing show at the Super Bowl.
It was, first of all, loved the halftime show. Again, those songs he played were huge when I was in like high school into early college. So every party, that's what was playing. So definitely brought me back. And I'm actually never really grew up as much of a football fan, but my best friend in the whole world, Andrew, is a giant Chiefs fan. And so the last 3 Super Bowls they played in, or that they won, I was there. So I think I'm the good luck charm. I'm pretty sure. So once we became friends, they started winning. So I was putting 2 and 2 together here.
Hey, and that makes a lot of sense. That's probably why they won, is because you gave them that charm. And I joke because my birthday falls on July the 1st and everything, but there is a big festival that I've been involved with for a number of years called the Eno Festival, and it is a long time festival here. But I joke that those tens of thousands of people that are coming to the Eno, it used to be a 3-day festival, now it's a 2-day festival, that they are coming to think for the music and the art and the food and all that good stuff. They're really not coming for that. It's just one big giant birthday party for me. They think that they're coming for a festival, but it's really one big giant birthday party for me. So that's a standard joke that I bring from the stage as I am emceeing. And sometimes I get some compliments on that because they're like, well, maybe we did have this birthday party for you and we didn't know it at all in that kind of way. So definitely share a little bit about what your company, Pilar, is all about and what a lead reviewer is and everything, because I do know that is part of your background as well.
Yeah. So the company Pillar 4, and I am the lead reviewer on Mattress Clarity. That also expands to some of our other sites helping out just about mattress knowledge. So lead reviewer, it is a lead mattress reviewer. So I've been doing this for almost 6 years. It'll be my 6-year anniversary early March. And I started as a writer, just kind of like doing copywriting and reviewing kind of products like comforters and pillows and kind of mattress accessories. And I slowly worked my way up to the mattress world. And, COVID hit, and my buddy and I, who were doing the reviews for, we just buckled down and shot as many mattress reviews as we could. We were each other's pod. We didn't see anybody else. We just shot mattress reviews. So it's a really good way to learn about the entire field of mattresses. But the main part of my job is trying out all of the major brands, mostly online mattress brands. So you think of like your Sattvas, your Nectars, your Dream Cloud, or Helix, any of these online bed in a box or online delivery brands. And the big issue with that is sometimes if you go online, you're like, it's great, I can get it shipped to my door, but I can't try it out myself. So myself and other reviewers that I work with, we come in to kind of give you our experience and help you narrow down if this is gonna be a good fit for you or not. So that's my main day job.
No, and along those same lines and everything, and just out of curiosity and want to know your thoughts about this, I know that if I was to turn on my TV, it's all right now that there will probably be advertisements for those sleep number beds. And a lot of times people are wanting those sleep number beds. And we mentioned earlier that today is Valentine's Day, and some people are glad that their sleep number is one number and maybe their mate or significant others is another. So I just wondering your take on sleep number beds. And I'm actually probably need, and matter of fact, there's no probably to it, I am much in need of a new mattress and all along those lines, because definitely got a mattress that was a hand-me-down when I moved into this apartment complex. It was actually in a different apartment than this one and everything. So yeah, it's seen better days, and it is probably about ready to attack me, because if the mattress starts falling apart, that means the springs are probably starting to fall apart as well. So yeah, the mattress is probably ready to do a horror movie on me and have me be eaten by the mattress. So I know that I am way overdue for a new mattress. But I just wanted your take on sleep number beds, and also your take on this notion of getting a good night's sleep on a better mattress, and do sleep numbers actually work?
Yeah, great question. First of all, yeah, if it's over 7 or 10 years on a mattress, no matter what type, it's time to upgrade. Like that's usually kind of the lifespan of a standard mattress. And I was the same way. I slept on the same bed for like way too long before I started doing this. And thankfully through this, I've tried a lot of beds and figured out new ones that I like. Sleep Number is great. Sleep Number is a fascinating company. It is a great way to specify the mattress and kind of customize it to what you need. That's one of the main things that, like, again, we talk about at Mattress Clarity, is like, there's no one right mattress for everyone, right? So a lot of companies will be like, hey, like, here's this bed, it's $500, it's going to be the best thing for everyone in the world. That just doesn't exist. Sleep Number is great because you can customize in each side. Like you said, if you have a partner, you're a side sleeper, your partner is more of a back sleeper. You can each customize to like what comfort level you want on your side. To be honest, I've only tried a few Sleep Numbers, and a lot of the stuff that I work with is non-smart bed technology, which Sleep Number is. One of the things about Sleep Number is they're really, really pricey. And for certain types of people, I think they're a good match. But like, there's lots of other beds that are a lot more affordable that can give you the same comfort and the same support without spending, honestly, like 5 times as much on a Sleep Number bed.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Like I said, getting ready to bring in some of the other guests very shortly, and we'll continue this conversation about a number of issues and a number of things going on in the world. But before I get to them, or at least one of them, and all along those lines, I was just wondering your thoughts about the importance of sleep, because I know that in some of our shows we've talked about sleep, and sometimes, a lot of times in this work world, a lot of times we don't get enough sleep, and sometimes we wake up in the middle of the night and all of that kind of thing, because Mother Nature does call sometimes. So I just wondered your take on the importance of sleep, because I know in this rush world, this world of a lot of people working gigs, working multiple jobs, and a number of other things, I've heard a number of people say that they are lucky if they get 4 to 5 hours sleep. I do try to get my standard 6, and I know some people that are still trying to get their 9 and everything. But I was just wondering your thoughts about the importance of sleep.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of the most important things that we do. I mean, it's the same as eating, right? It's sustenance for your body. Again, before I started doing this, like I was a horrible sleeper. I bartended for years. So I was up till 4 a.m., sleeping till 3 p.m. And I also had undiagnosed sleep apnea. I didn't know that I had those at the time. Reviewing mattresses and writing about sleep, I realized I had that, and I got treated, and my quality of life went up. And that's the main thing I say about the importance of sleep, is that everything else doesn't work in your life if you don't have like the power to do it, if you don't get that good sleep. And it affects your mental health, it affects heart health, all types of health in your body, also with Alzheimer's and dementia. Like these things are more common in people who aren't getting the proper amount of sleep. So basically the comorbidity and everything that sleep relates to is absolutely insane. And so getting a good night's sleep can put everything in order. And if you have trouble like insomnia or sleep apnea, like definitely see a sleep professional or a sleep doctor.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm going to bring in Stephen May and see if he's getting enough sleep. And all along those lines, I've got another guest that I'll bring in as well, because one of the questions I'm curious to ask both of you in a little bit, but I'll learn more about Stephen May. But it's a question I asked all my guests, but I definitely love to hear Stephen May. And are you getting enough sleep? And also, what are your thoughts about some of the other things that we've been talking about, and all along those lines, including the fact that Kansas City won the Super Bowl and that amazing Usher show and everything. But how are you doing in terms of your sleep?
All right. Well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. And happy Valentine's Day to both of you and everyone out there. As far as sleep, no, I don't get enough. And I've done through the sleep studies. I've gone through mattresses. It's just the way my mind works. And, the hardest part for me is that getting to sleep mode. And once I'm in sleep, I'm in REM and I'm feel great. But those aren't in high quantities. And that's where, I fall short. But other than that, Super Bowl, tremendous, unbelievable. And even being in California, you think I went for Kansas City. They've always been a favorite of mine. So kudos to you, Martin. And you said you're in Austin, right?
I'm in Austin, yeah.
I'll be in San Antonio shortly, going down to New Brunswick. So,
beautiful.
Oh yeah, and but gorgeous. I had a great time. For me, same with you. It was nostalgic on the halftime, and I grew up also listening to nonstop Usher and all that related music during just the schooling, and it just played everywhere. He was big. He's still big. So it was interesting. And it was interesting also to see the high to low profile for Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
She didn't want to take quite the bandwidth away from the Super Bowl, but the Super Bowl and the producers and everything were always on it. You know what I mean? So it's like, when do we bring her in? When do we show them? And yeah, it was interesting. So it was just great Sunday.
No, it's a great Sunday. I definitely agree with you on that and everything. Now, something that can sometimes disrupt your sleep, and I used to have one, don't have one at the moment and everything. And this is actually where you come in, Steve, and everything. But I do know, and I don't know whether Martin has one or not. But there have been times that I've had various pets. My brother currently has a
Mhm.
dog and a big dog, and all along those lines. My mom had a big dog, but as a age now in her 80s, and at that time she was in her 70s, that big dog was too much for her to handle, so she actually gave it away and all along those lines. And at some point, maybe she'll get what some people call those small dogs, or they have other kind of nicknames for those small dogs. But I did have at one point, because I was house sitting for well, not house sitting, but pet sitting for a friend that used to live here in this apartment complex. So I had access to their cat and enjoyed the cat when I had it here, even though the cat at one point did tear up some of the curtains because I was gone. Because sometimes you're gone, the cat or whatever pet will decide to have playtime and all along those lines. So, like I said, the curtains are up and they have been repaired. But this was about a year or two ago. But I just wanted your take on the importance of pets, because I do know that you're in the veterinary industry and all along those lines. And apparently, you had a pet transportation. I was going like, we got vet hospitals, we got vet ambulances. I didn't even know that was a thing and everything. I see the real ambulances going on, but I heard that you were doing pet professional pet transportation would be like being a pet ambulance and everything. But what is your take on the importance of pets as a therapeutic tool? Because a lot of people, they get the pets because it helps soothe them, and it can be even the small pets like the fish. And I had a friend that had several fish, and I've known some people that had birds and even exotic pets like raccoons and other things. I've known folks that deal with those. But then I know some other people that their reaction to the animals caused them to have a problem with having animals and might disrupt their sleep and everything. And I'll get to that in a second. But what is your take on the importance of pets in our overall health and particularly our sleep? Because I know that sometimes that cat or that dog will meow or bark all night long, and you might not get any sleep when they want to have you walk them or want to just have your attention for whatever reasons they want your attention.
It's a great question, and it's an individual answer, but I can certainly tell you that the majority of pet owners, and when we have like 68 million dogs out there that are domestic and 46 million cats that are in households right now, maybe over half of them actually physically and within their soul bond with them, that they are part of the family. So incredible. And, I've read studies about bringing the therapeutic effects to the sleep portion of it. Do they sleep in bed? Do they not sleep in bed? Are they clean? Are they not clean? I had at one point, I don't know, 4 or 5 animals in my bed at any given time. And that's nothing compared to some clients I have. So it is, yeah, they woke me up when they'd moved and rotated. But I got to tell you, for, even non-professional, let's say work dogs, disability dogs, and emotional support animals, yeah, they all provide, in conjunction with companion, they all provide a huge therapy and a huge peace of mind. And there's this unexplained connection that you have. And I've had pets all my life, but I have certainly felt the void when I just recently put down 3 of my pets in a period of 14 months.
Mhm.
And then I said, okay, I'm going to just take a break, clean up, see what happens. No, didn't happen. It is, and the same when clients treat it. They don't come in and they think that, here's my dog. He needs these shots. Let's just get it done. I'm going home. No, it's not how it works. It's like you're actually treating their family. And that's where the emotional connection comes in. And, for those that are, all of us that are in the veterinary industry, we understand that. And that migration between a pet owner and the label between a pet parent and the label between having dogs versus fur babies is, for 5 years already, maybe 6 years. And so that also addresses the issue about connection, and whether it's emotional, physical, therapeutic, whatever it may be, it almost is irrelevant, and it just needs to be recognized. I've seen this, for me, here I go dating myself. I've seen this already back in the 70s that these pet owners, um, you could see these pets come in for treatment nonstop, loyal clients, 8 to 12 years, nothing ever happened. You save their lives, you lose their collar and leash, they're gone.
Yeah.
There's something that's connecting of emotional value. There's like their emotional bank account just got emptied,
Yeah, no doubt,
and
no doubt about that. And I imagine one of the harder things to deal with, just in that same regards and everything, is I do know that sometimes, and you kind of alluded to it, can be very difficult, not just for the kids, but also the adults, including some in their 70s and 80s, when they have to put that dog to, or any animal, to rest and everything. So I just wondering your thoughts about that and how you can deal with that, or even prepare people to deal with that. Because I know that that has been the hardest thing for some of my family members when they have had to put an animal down, and because of it getting old and not being able to maneuver as much as it was before. And sometimes those illnesses are, you know, at the end of their life stage and everything, so they are having to be put down and actually, having to deal with that and everything. But I was just wondering your thoughts about that, and what kind of advice you give to people in the area of the United States that you are from and everything, in terms of how to deal with that.
well, I'll tell you. Great question again. Really, I'll tell you both sides of the coin on that one. I'll tell you what happens in my personal as well as for clients. Um, my father passed away from Parkinson's. Okay, so it's personal, right? And so he hardly moved, and it got very difficult toward the end. But his cat jumped up on his belly, and somehow he was able to pet the cat, stroke the cat, play with the cat, engage with his kitty. And so already you have, and he was 80. So this answers addresses a question about elders and how they are, how they treat that. Now, the other side of the coin is that who makes the decision on end of life care and
Mhm.
end of life process? Really, who makes that decision? I've told many pet parents that when you know, and when you know. And part of it is you ask yourself, is your pet, is your baby having a good quality of life? It's a simple it's a simple question, very hard to answer. Because many have said to me, what do you think? Is it time? I said, I can't answer that. I said, if it's traumatic or injury or hit by car, or I can answer it. But if it's something that is, where they're at the end of their life and they're not seeing the quality, I believe in your soul and in your heart as a pet parent, you'll know. And I'll tell you some signs. So when you first got your pet, healthy, happy, played around, walked around, no trouble walking, no trouble, go through that. Is your pet having trouble walking? Is your pet having trouble breathing? Does it affect their life quality as opposed to your life quality? Because that's what you want to take care of. They're taking care of you, you take care of them. So the decision is always going to be hard. And I've seen many situations where multi pets were put down at the same time for the same family. It just shreds their soul. But at the end of the day, you look at it and say, okay, well, in this situation, one was 11, one was already 12. These are large breeds, which have a shorter lifespan, so they've already expanded their lifespan, and they were just it was uh, a decision an owner has to make. But almost when you look from the outside in, that decision could have come a long time ago. They just couldn't let go, and know what's truly best for their pet. And that's just an educational feeling. And so you ask yourself, and the one thing that I kind of share is your pet experiencing a good quality of life? So, for instance, I had a pet parent call me and say, my cat's going in. He's 12 years old, Himalayan, had him since a kitten. That look at that wedge right there of 12 years. Okay, what happened in your lives and everyone out there in just 12 years, if not a decade? What happened? Okay,
Yeah.
so it's not just what's the hard part about letting go is you close a chapter.
Mhm.
That part of the chapter closes. Life goes on. You choose to how you deal with it. That's a whole nother story.
Yeah,
But
that makes.
but you're closing a chapter.
Mhm.
When one of my dogs was I inherited from my mom when she passed away. So every time I looked at it, there's a memory retention, and then there's my engagement in my relationship, and then I know when was the right time. I truly did because I've been in it long enough.
Right.
But so my friend said, "Hey, what do you think?" I said, "I think you should go into your veterinarian and find out what is going on, why your cat is not eating, drinking more water than usual, and give me a call. I'll be there on the phone. We can FaceTime, whatever you want to do. I'm there for you." And sure enough, I got on the phone with the veterinarian and I said, "Okay, let me guess what you're going to do. Blood work, X-rays, keep for the day. Everything else seems normal, right?" "Yes." "Okay." So I knew that was going to happen. So next thing he started to provide. It was really not unusual, quite usual. There was renal failure in that age cat,
Right.
and so they did all the fluids at home for a period of time, and then he called. He says, "I think it's time," and he just broke down. I said, "I truly feel for what your heart and your soul's telling me." Uh, and I couldn't get a word in. Guy was just completely in pieces.
He
And I
probably
said, yeah, I just said, ask yourself this: does Sam now have a good quality of life? It's a blessing that we're able to make that decision while we as humans suffer. And we don't get that privilege. We get end of care, we get hospice, but we don't have that privilege. And I said, you've done a wonderful, and you have a wonderful relationship. You have nothing but positive memories to fall back on. I go, life is life, and time is time.
no,
So I don't know
no,
if I made his decision, but I brought it up. So he
no.
called me. He said, it was not a good quality of life for Sam. So I put him down this afternoon.
That makes a lot of sense, and that's definitely some poignant stories there. I'm going to bring in my final guest and everything and see what he's got going on. But as I bring him in and learn more about him, and then I've got a question for all of you that it deals with something that I talk about on this show quite a bit and everything. But before I get to Calvin and everything, the other question I have for you really quickly, Stephen, is I do know that there are a number of people, and I've even had some of my own family members that love to get those exotic animals. I heard that there was a lady in I want to say it was in Ohio that had practically her own zoo, like a menagerie, because I think she had everything from tigers to a number of other things, and all along those lines. So, what is your thoughts as one in the veterinarian field for those that want to get these exotic animals? Because you do have folks that want to get like the ocelot, and I used to joke that I wanted a otter as a pet, and I don't think that you can even get an otter as a pet, and I'd have to have a pond. And like I've told y'all before, I live in an apartment complex. There's no
Yeah.
pond here, and all on those sides, so I don't know where the otter would live and everything. But that used to be a joke that I had. That I thought that they were kind of cool looking animals, and they definitely look like they take care of themselves the way that they wash and all along those lines. But what is your thoughts for those people that are like, hey, I've always wanted that tiger. Maybe Martin and Calvin have always wanted that giraffe or something in their life and everything. But what is your thoughts of those that are either having those exotic animals or want those exotic animals?
But for those that want and have, you ask yourself, A, am I really educated on taking care of this pet exactly the way it needs to be? Do I have the habitant to and bring that environment that is socially correct, or am I just one crazy pet owner that gets an alligator and it just grows in my apartment? Okay, that's not conducive. Second is check on your state laws. What is allowed, what is not allowed. And I've worked with large cats, and I mean full male, lions, tigers, panthers, all the way down to elephants, all the way down to guinea pigs. And including the reptiles from snakes, alligators, crocs. Uh, and many of them, what happens is when they don't check the state law and they just happen to buy them off market, black market, all of a sudden they go, "Oh my God, I can't handle this," and they will contact a wildlife rescue in that state, and if they're responsible enough, get them transported to the wildlife way station. So for those that already have, listen, I've had clients that have gone on the avian side. I've walked in the backyard. He's got emus, which I got kicked in the shin, flamingos, all different types of exotic parrots, but really ones that you don't see here in the States. Didn't ask where he got them, but he created the environment they're supposed to be living in. Makes sense. And he could afford it. But when you're thinking about just saying, oh, wow, Bobcat would be cool, let's do that. Not probably a very good idea, no matter what state you're in, because DNA wise, they're not domesticated, right? And it's just like if an animal gets injured, even that is domesticated. Here's a freaky one. Dog, cat, if they have a fracture, they will lay on the fracture. Okay. And if it's a human, it's don't touch, my legs up, stay away. Complete opposite. That's because in their DNA, they're vulnerable, right, to any signs of weakness as prey. So when you have a large animal and you have that kind of situation, oh man, it's not good. So they have to really go through generations and generations of being domesticated, and then you can't put 100% faith that they won't turn, bite, or injure.
And apparently Calvin's dog wanted to interrupt the show and everything, so we're going to find out about Calvin's dog when he comes back and all along those lines. It looked like the dog was trying to join the show and be a star of the show and everything. So Calvin, share a little bit about yourself, and it looks like your dog was trying to join the show. And we've had some guests and past shows, including one of the exotic birds that joined the show and came in as the guest of a guest and everything. So I do know that sometimes the animals are like, wait a minute, y'all cannot be the only star. I want to be a star too. So I think that's what happened with his dog and everything. He wanted to have his moment of stardom. So introduce a little bit about yourself as well.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I was looking for the mute button here somewhere, but I couldn't find any. I didn't want to distract from you guys' conversation. I had someone come in the door. Founder of a software company and a business coach to entrepreneurs, to coaches especially, and a pet and a dog daddy and dog lover. Yeah,
dog daddy.
Dog daddy. Like that term. I heard that, fur babies and dog daddy and all along those lines. Some people like their dogs more than others. I'd asked both Martin and Stephen if they had watched the game. I did watch the majority of the game. Might have missed a few moments. And the Usher performance, I know for a fact, because like I said earlier, 62 years old, getting me on roller skates is probably not going to happen, but I was admiring the fact that Usher got on those roller skates and did quite well, and was also have been a fan in the past of her, and I thought that she did a good job on her guitar solo and all along those lines. But there were a number of other great performances, including I believe it was Audrey Day that did the Negro national anthem, and definitely Reba McEntire that sang the national anthem and all along those lines. So there were some great performances there and everything. But definitely, if anybody's got any thoughts about those amazing performances or just the game in general, and I see that Calvin has brought the dog with him, and all that's very cute dog, and all along.
Insisting on coming back here.
So did you get a chance to watch the Super Bowl game? And then the question I was going to ask everybody, which I do on quite a bit of these shows.
I did not. So I'm not from this country. I'm from Denmark, and so I never fully caught the bug. I think I've watched one game in 2011. That's it. I'm in a high-rise building in New York City. Mm-hmm. On the 9th floor, we have a gym and a swimming pool and a sauna. So I spent that time in the sauna where I met my Swedish neighbor and my Hong Kong neighbor and my Israeli neighbor. So we were all the expats that gathered in the sauna during the Super Bowl. So I missed it, but I do enjoy going back and watching some of the commercials afterwards, because that seems to be, obviously the talk of the town. And I was very impressed with Kanye's approach of just like handheld, low res video, not produced at all, versus everybody else who's like throwing millions and millions into the production. I think that was definitely the standout for me.
Yeah, that definitely did stand out and everything. I heard some people that were complaining about the mic quality of of the mic that Usher had and a number of others. But then in terms of the commercials, a lot of people were quite impressed with Beyonce, who got to release her country album, because this latest album is going to be country oriented, which will be outside of her realm of usually being in the pop and R&B category, and she's got a North Carolina artist, Rihanna, get into it, part of the Carolina Chocolate Drops that performed on that album with her and everything. But definitely a lot of people were watching that commercial, and a lot of people were impressed by that commercial. And they dug up, as they always do, celebrities from the past, because apparently there is a commercial that featured both Mr. T and Tom Scott. Now you talk about digging up people from the past; those are definitely folks from the past, because I definitely do remember the A-Team, but that was one of the commercials. And of course they picked on Arnold Schwarzenegger because he didn't know how to pronounce neighbor and all in that way and everything. So that was actually a kind of funny.
Was there someone that sang off key that got scrubbed off the internet? I overheard some conversation about that.
Well, I mean, there was
I didn't see that.
I didn't see that. I did hear there was
like I think it was like the opening. I was just overhearing the conversation in the coffee shop this morning, and I think it was like Alicia Keys like hit a false wrong note in the opening or something, and then all the replays online, it's been fixed.
Oh wow!
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that shows that importance of technology. You can fix those errors, because that is one of those that I'd heard, was that there were some off-key performances from Alicia Keys, and I think that I heard some from Usher as well. But hey, you can go in there and scrub it and fix it after the fact, and apparently that's what they did on this particular note and everything. Just really quickly, what got you to come? Because I do have a friend of mine that is actually married to a gentleman. I think he's from the Netherlands, not from Denmark. But what got you to come to the States from Denmark, and what drew you to New York in particular? Because I've heard some amazing things about Denmark, and of course a lot of people are thinking that they would like to go visit Denmark, myself included, and maybe my other two guests along with yourself have thought about going there as well. But what drew you here, and what would you tell people are the reasons that they should go visit Denmark if they get an opportunity?
Denmark is a beautiful country. It really is. And it's very optimized for the middle of the bell curve, if you will, right? Like it's a great country if you're kind of normal person. You've got fantastic quality of life. You've got great, welfare, social care, etc. Schools, like life with kids is really easy and nice. And it's a beautiful city. And now it's fascinating because it used to be, the food in Denmark used to be really subpar, like really bland and boring. And then Rene Redzepi opened this restaurant called Noma and completely revolutionized the high cuisine and local season and all that stuff, made it to #1 in the world. And that brought so many tourists and so many chefs that wanted to work at that kitchen, so that now Copenhagen is this food metropolis. Like foodies travel to Copenhagen for that. So it's super fascinating to me that one man, of course, like there's a team, but it's like one man's vision that completely changed the culinary landscape of one city, right? It's amazing that that's possible. And it's kind of inspiration for the rest of us, like what's possible for one person to achieve. I've always been into software. My mom started a software company in 1980 in Denmark, and my dad had his own business. Both of my parents got into programming in the early 70s, and when there were like literally 5 computers in the entire country, and they were using punch cards, like little cardboard cards that you punch holes in. That's how you talk to the computer and how it talks back to you. I forget, I wasn't there, but I know that was kind of the input device, was like those punch cards. And so I got into software really early because my dad taught me. And in Europe, everybody pretty much, when you go to college, you go to another country in the EU for a year to study. And my brother, he went to Germany, and people would go to France or Spain or whatnot. And being into software, it just didn't make sense for me to go to Germany. Like there's only one country in the world, at least at that point, at that time, where software was built, was taught. And so I decided to study a year abroad in the US. I didn't know anything. So I bought like a road atlas. This was in late 90s. I bought like a big road atlas to look at, like, oh, there's Chicago. I've heard that name. And like, oh, Los Angeles is over there. Like I had to orient myself. So I had no idea where I was going to go. The internet did exist, but Google Maps didn't. So, I had to try to like piece it all together. And then I realized, oh, there's this .com boom happening. Like, why would I pay 30 grand in tuition to some like Santa Cruz, whatever university, when I could get a job and make 6 figures? So I ended up doing that. And then It was actually my girlfriend at the time. She was also into software and computers, and she got a scholarship at a university here in New York. And so that was why it ended up being New York, and I happen to be still here. So
it sounds like, since we were talking about Valentine's Day earlier, and I'm not sure what the good veterinarian's situation is. I do know that Martin said that he was single, as am I, and everything. But it seems like the girlfriend that brought you here, because I do know that sometimes you can move to a place for love. I actually moved to Boca Raton thinking that I was going to be pursuing a young lady in Miami and everything. Little did I realize how far Boca Raton is from Miami, because I thought it was literally like next door and everything. And then when I got there, I realized it was a little bit further. I mean, it wasn't quite next door and didn't have all the transportation that I might have wanted to get there. So that relationship did not go anywhere. So I'm assuming that the lady that brought you here is not maybe the same one that you're with, or maybe it is the same one that you're with, Mr. Calvin.
it's not. It's a little complicated, but yeah, we ended up actually getting married. We ended up having kids, and then one of the conflict points was about where we were going to live, because I knew from that moment, it was in 1999 that I moved here. I knew in my gut, in my heart, this is where I belong. This is the country I want to live in. There's never any doubt. And we didn't quite see eye to eye on that. And so eventually we broke up, and now I live here with another woman who's my wife now, also from Denmark. So I imported her, and we've been together for 13 years now.
Speaking of imports and everything, and I had read an article earlier about some of the imports, and you mentioned the food import, but I was just wondering your thoughts about, is there any great music? Because I'm a big music lover, that's coming out of Denmark, or is Denmark just pretty much like a lot of countries, it's importing the American music? But is there some musicians that we need to pay attention to that are Denmark based that maybe you even listen to these days and everything? Because definitely I don't know enough of the music scenes of some of the other countries, even though I am a music fan.
Well, there is the big country, Scandinavian country that is really good and does a lot of music is Sweden. Right? They have Max Martin as the producer. They've had lots of big bands. What is the Cranberries and like ABBA and all those. I think the most famous Danish music is probably Aqua with Baby Barbie Girl. That really made it around the world back, what was that, 20 years ago or something? That was crazy. But what's happening in the music world right now in Denmark? I have no idea, actually. I haven't been there for years. It's funny how quickly kind of you lose touch with a country when you're not there. Like every once in a while, I'll check in on a Danish newspaper online just to see what's happening. Or for a while, they have this tradition of doing like a 2-3 hour show every year at the end of the year to celebrate the year that passed and with the highlights. And I'd kind of sometimes watch that just to kind of like, oh, that's what happened in Denmark. But yeah, I'm so not up to speed on it.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Then the question I said I was going to ask everybody, and this is where that comes into play and everything, is one of the things we do on the online dinner party is we oftentimes talk about growth and development and all along those lines. And we were kind of alluding to it even with the pet care and the importance of sleep and everything. But I know that there is this whole notion, I know I'm guilty of it, I kind of alluded to it even in the romance space and all in that way, where we can be our own worst critic. So I was going to ask all three of you, how do you deal with the self-critic and that whole notion? Because I know we can be our worst enemies in any field, whether it's business coaching, which is what you're doing, or whether it's this whole notion of mattress reviewing, or even the veterinarian field. And like I said before, I know there have been jobs that I have not gone for, including some in the arts and the romances that I've not gone for, because I was having that whole little debate with yourself in your brain and everything. And by the time you win the debate, the target of interest has left and is no longer available, whether that is a romantic target or whether that is a business target. So I was just wondering y'all's thoughts as to how you deal with that inner critic and also to some degree that outer critic. So I'll start with you, Martin, since we haven't heard from you in a while, but I definitely want to hear from Calvin and Stephen as well. But how do you deal with that lovely inner critic? Because in all fields, I'm sure there were people that told you, why are you going to review mattresses? All mattresses are good for is sleeping on. Why are you trying to start a mattress business? There is no money in mattresses, even though I know that's a lie, because you can make a whole lot of money in the mattress field and everything. But I was just wondering, I'm sure you got some relatives and even some friends that were like, there's no money here, go get a real job.
Oh, absolutely. It's, I number one, how I deal with it is therapy. I'm 16 years in and I'm not going back, and so I'm very thankful for the work I know with my therapist. A big thing we do is something called parts therapy, where we look at the different parts of your psyche and your body and how they react to stressful situations and traumatic situations. And a lot of times, my inner critic is trying to think protect me from things maybe I don't need to be protected from, right? You said like, don't go for that, you're gonna get hurt, or don't stand too tall, you're gonna get hurt here. And it really applies more in my main passion outside of mattresses is I'm a filmmaker and a screenwriter, is that kind of kind of cutting myself down before I even try. And so I've learned to kind of listen to that inner critic and then push back in a healthy way versus like not saying shut up, but okay, you're here to protect me, but also I really want this and here's why I'm going to do it. And how can I also settle your fears to that part of myself? So it's really worked for me. I'm not perfect at it, but compared to 16 years ago, like you said, I am a completely different person. I've grown quite a bit professionally and personally. So therapy and a lot of meditation too. So
Your meditation is very much important in everything. Before I get to the other two guests of that same question and everything, I do have to ask, because there's been movies about all kinds of things. So what is the movie that you're working on going to be about, or what are the movies that you've already created been about? And is there any movies that are starring in a good way? Maybe there's a talking mattress and all along those lines, because I know that mattresses can tell a whole lot of secrets that you don't want told and all in that life. So that could be a whole film in and of itself and everything, because they might have some stories both about your romantic life and also the lack thereof and everything. So definitely that could be a whole story that could be a nice comedy about the story if the mattress was talking and all along those lines. But it's just an idea for you and everything, since those are both in your field. And I don't know that they've made a movie about a talking mattress as of yet. But hey, maybe this is something you can create.
well, and if I do, Mark, I will definitely give you credit, and I'll make sure to give you, inspired by, because there is a mattress. There is a movie called Deathbed, the Bed That Eats, and it is a talking killer mattress. It's real. It's absolutely terrible. I do not recommend it to anyone. But most of my stuff that I make, I like scary stuff, like we talked about earlier on, Mark. Like I love the spooky stuff. So nothing really out there to see except for a short film on YouTube right now called Starlets that I made a few years ago. It's kind of a throwback to Whatever Happened to Baby Jane and Psycho. It's a black and white kind of noir horror film. The one I'm working on right now for next year can be a bigger feature film. Is kind of a horror comedy about. It's actually funny you mentioned older software, Calvin, because it's about early 1992 LAN parties and how people used to hook up their computers.
Yeah.
And these friends are kind of reconnecting over how they used to spend their time in the early 90s and how technology was so different pre-internet. And it's them kind of having this LAN party together and things go awry. So that's the kind of film I'm working on at the moment, but excited to see what happens with it.
It sounds like a great film and everything. And there have been a number of films before I get to Stephen and all of those lines, but there have been quite a few films, including Cujo and Pet Cemetery, about pets. And some of those have been horror films and everything. So I don't know whether Martin's got a film that is based on the pet culture, because definitely I could even see when there are all these TV shows about ambulances and medical shows. So maybe we're going to need a TV show about this pet ambulance business, because I didn't even know that that was necessarily a thing until I was reading Stephen's bio. But apparently there are people running around collecting your pet and rushing them off to the veterinarian and all in that space. But what do you think about this notion of any pet movies that you may have in mind? And then I definitely want to hear from Stephen, both on.
Oh man, pet movies. I mean, if you want to do nice pet movies, I love Homeward Bound a lot. I think it's and the Incredible Journey, those kind of classics. Milo and Otis, Lady and the Tramp. It's go animated. But and if you want to talk about doing a project, let me know, Stephen. We can do some ambulance movies. So I got you.
Yeah, that's great. So, it's interesting. Going back to the first off, thank you for sharing, Martin. I appreciate the openness and the honesty and listening to what you had to say in regard to the critic. For me, I look at it outside and inside. So I've got probably a coliseum full of critics in my head. And that's been there for a long time. And when you talk about therapy, I'm at it now 39 years. And so I am not 100% on applying all the different tools and techniques, but I progress. And that's all I care about at this point. So, a few quick things for me that works only for me is that I do my best to say, sounds good. Thanks for sharing. I mean, that is just bam, you know, and those noises just stop because they're never going to end. It is what it is, right? There's just too much doubt, and you hear what's happening in the news, good and or bad, and we hear it down to our local cities, good and or bad, and that's all influential in how you act, react, and behave. And so in business, same thing. Something really horrible happens. I went, wow, Christ. First thing I run to is fear. Then I go, oh, thanks for sharing. Okay, I'll deal with it. And the other, I guess, technique or is I do my best, meaning I hit about 85%. I just stay in the now. Because I have no clue about what I can do yesterday, and I have no idea what's coming tomorrow. I can plan, I can obsess, I can forecast, but in reality, we all don't. So that's what works for me. And that includes everything under that umbrella. Whether it's meditation techniques, or whether it's sharing, or whatever. As long as I get the inside voices and critics, I'll listen to the best and dump the rest, and then I make my decisions. That's how it works.
Yeah, Calvin, what's your thoughts about that? Because he kind of alluded to it, and it comes into that whole conversation around the inner critic and the outer critic as well, because there are two very popular words that I know a lot of times in business and in life we have a hard time with, even though they are not that complicated to say. They're not even that complicated to spell. But I know a lot of people are very terrified of that word called no, N-O, and saying no to people and everything. And a lot of people are also somewhat terrified in the opposite kind of way of that word called yes, also Y-E-S and everything. But I just wondered your thoughts about that as a business coach, because I do know that sometimes that people pleaser can come into the conversation as well. And there's this fear of saying no. And I know that I'm guilty of that as well. It looks like both Martin and Stephen are also. So I just wondered, how do you deal with that inner critic, and also how do you deal with that people pleaser ability? Because sometimes we don't want to say no because we're afraid we might hurt the feeling of the person that's asking us the question and everything.
Yeah. No, I mean, great stuff from both of you guys. The way I see it is we all have at the core of our personality this fear that we're not enough. And because we're not enough, we're not going to be loved, and ultimately we're going to die. That's the underlying fear, and everybody has it. It just shows up differently. Some people is like, I'm not rich enough, I'm not successful enough, I'm not sexy enough, attractive enough, skinny enough, fat enough, like whatever it is, right? But we all have that, and it'll never go away because it's a feature of the personality. What we tend to do is like, oh, I don't feel like I'm rich enough, so let me do some personal development so I learn how to make more money, and then we make more money, and then we still don't feel rich enough because the goalposts keep moving, because it will never be enough because it's part of the personality. So the only answer is step out of the personality. And so that's what you guys are talking about, like meditation or I love service. Like the moment you make it about someone else and like, focusing on their suffering and what we can do to alleviate that suffering, we get out of ourselves. Or God, life, higher self, calling, spirit, whatever you want to call that, like stepping into that energy. That part of us is always present. It's always enough. It was never not enough. The personality will never get to feel enough. Yeah. So we have to shift the gears. And that's the way out of it. So kind of like what
Stephen, along those same lines and everything, just really quickly to back you up on it, something you said, because I heard what you said and I understand what you were saying, but sometimes in this society, we also get pushed into this job or this notion, and I think one of the other gentlemen kind of alluded to it, of wanting to be service oriented and want to help other people with their vision, but it's not always your vision. Because I know that I've been involved in that. I'm sure that both Martin and definitely Stephen have probably run that into that as well, where you might be asked to get the other person's business off on a success, and it's not necessarily your vision or your dream and everything. I know that's happened definitely in the medical field. I'm sure there are people that approach Stephen and were like, "Hey, why don't you join my practice and everything?" And Stephen was going like, "Your vision and my vision aren't necessarily the same vision and everything." So I just want to everybody's take on that, because I have run into that even in some of my own business where people are wanting you to kind of take their dream and make it your dream. And I'm not saying you can't support your friends and can't support people that you want to support, but sometimes people are wanting to co-opt you, for lack of a better term.
Mike, I just have, for time, I have to bounce in 5 minutes here.
Okay.
So just so we're
So I'll give you the answer, and then we'll get about another 30 minutes with the whole show and everything. In the first place.
My short version of the answer is, as a leader, your job is to have a vision that's big enough for everybody on your team to fit, for their vision to fit under your vision. And so that way, when they support you in your vision, you're supporting them in their vision at the same time. And it's about engineering it that way so that your vision is big enough to hold all of theirs, and then get the people on the team whose vision aligns with yours. Right. So that's kind of the only way that I know of that you can do it. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
You're asking about the pleasing, huh?
One of the things I was going to do is, since I know you've only got a few more minutes to give me and everything, but one of the things, and I'll do it the same with Martin and Stephen, probably in another half an hour or so, but all my guests, I get them to give a message of positivity. So since you were walking out the door first at this dinner party and everything, I'll definitely want you to do that, and also tell how you can be reached, and me and Martin and Stephen will continue the conversation for at least a little bit longer. But that's something I get all my guests to do on all of these dinner parties, because that's kind of my own personal mission, is to spread as much positivity as I can. I figure I'm only here on this earth for however long God lets me be on this earth. But that being said, I like to have fellow friends and fellow empaths share their message of positivity and hope for this world, particularly as Stephen said earlier, there's so much difficulty that we're hearing all the time and all this division. So anything I can do to counter that in some degree, that's what I try to do on these shows. So if you want to tell folks how you can be reached and how they can get in touch with you if they're needing of business coaches and a message of positivity.
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, that's beautiful. I think I'll just go back to what we were talking about before, my message of positivity would be for everybody to realize that they're already enough, and that this striving to be more and to be something or somebody or prove themselves, you don't need to do that. You're already enough. You're already love. You're not someone who needs love from other people. You are love. You're overflowing with love. And when you give love, you feel love. So realize that you're enough just as you are. And to reach me, Calvin Corelli on Instagram is the best place to find me. And then, just follow me there and hit me up in the DMs and say that you saw me here. And would love to connect with people that way.
Cool. And like I said, I'd love having guests come back on the dinner party. So definitely I've had guests make return trips on a few of these shows. So hopefully you'll get a chance to make a return trip, and also on our World Edition and other shows that we do here on Pod TV. So you'll definitely be hearing from me, and hopefully we'll get even more insight from you as well. But definitely know you got the jet, but we've got some time for the other guests as well. And Stephen,
thank you, Mark. And thank you, Martin and Stephen. Great to meet you guys.
Thank you, Doggy Daddy. I appreciate it. It's nice to meet you too.
Yeah.
Bye.
Stephen, just one of the things I was curious about, and you kind of alluded to it in some of your bio information that I received as well, but we do know that during COVID, there was a lot of talk about the healthcare profession and what's going on in the healthcare profession. And there's a lot of people that are concerned about the mental health of our healthcare providers, our law enforcement people, and even our teachers and everything. But when I saw that there is a active suicide rate that is high for all healthcare professionals, and I'm guessing also in the veterinarian space as well, that actually caught me a little bit off guard, even though I do know that a lot of times doctors, whether they are doctors of humans or doctors of pets, are going through a lot of stress. And one of those stresses is something else I'd be curious to hear from you as well, which is a lot of times, and actually, I think it was one of the gentlemen, it might have been Calvin that referred to it earlier, but sometimes the divorce also leads to the divorce of pets, and that can also be a stressor as well. So I just wanted your thoughts about both of those, because I do know that sometimes people are wanting to keep the pet, but maybe the other partner doesn't want to keep the pet as well. So you have to do that whole co-parenting thing with your fur baby, just like you do with your real babies. But if you could speak to both of those.
Sure, absolutely. In the veterinary profession, there is a big rise, unfortunately, with mental the mental status of people working in the pet industry, especially directly with pets, like veterinarians, veterinary technicians, veterinary assistants. You have your groomers. You have all those have a higher propensity for suicide in the last couple of years, and it's been really rough recently. And the reason for that, when I say recently, I say 6 months. During the pandemic, everyone is home. Adoptions and pet growth just increased. It just exploded, right? So everyone got a pet that they couldn't. They're at home, and all of a sudden they got to go back to work. They don't can't afford daycare. It's an endless different amounts and reasons why they had to give up their pet, or it's just not conducive now because they're going back to work. So many of them will either even including veterinarians that work and staff works at shelter medicine, or ones that work in individual or corporate veterinary hospitals. They just can't stand it anymore. It may not be unusual to have 8 euthanasias in 5 days.
Wow.
And I mean, think of the mental toll that takes. That's not why I went to school. Well, you look at it, there's two sides of that coin, but the reality is it hurts. And so there's a real focus now on understanding what is needed for the well-being of you as a person, understanding work-life balance, and getting those emotions that cause you to go through a downward rabbit hole, this real deep spiral rabbit hole, to stop right at the moment. All I can tell you is all the people that I know have already been touched by somebody in the industry that has passed away from suicide.
Wow.
That's how unbelievably intense it is for the veterinary industry. And it's the same with whether it's a physician assistant, RN, PRN, nurse practitioner, MD, OD. They all go through the same thing. It's really tough, right? But they've got a head start a little bit above, their wellness programs and packages, whether it be self or, participating in groups or therapy. They're ahead of the game. And we're getting over the hump. It'll never ever be gone. It's a really rotten profession in that respect to be in, because our heart bleeds. We see it. We see that patient. 5, 6 years, 8 years, maybe 12 years, and as they get older, they come in more frequently, and so that's an extended family member. So you go back and you look and say, oh my God, I just can't. The loss is overwhelming, and there's no support at home yet. There's no support in the profession, and the culture is very introverted. We do great in engaging with the client. They just do great. That is what it is. You got an exam table, there's a barrier, and after that it's wide open. You can share and talk whatever you need to do. But when they get past everything, they go home and they're just beat up, mentally beat up. So big initiatives, lots of associations, whether it's the American Veterinary Medical Association, the local state VMAs, veterinary medical, they all have guidance on wellness and that. So it's good. It's unfortunate. There's now, even, not one more is another association that came up within the veterinary industry. We're not going to lose one more because we have to deal with this problem. So that's, yeah. And I'm trying to remember. I apologize. On the short term.
The other question
older
was
than you are.
the other question was the notion of people that are trying to keep the pets, but they are going through divorce and separation.
Oh yeah.
Themselves and everything.
Oh yeah. So it is no different for those pet owners and pet parents, because some of them it's like no big deal, but the ones that are treating their pets like children, it's really tough to begin to deal with what we would look at as child custody, right? One party may want the animal because they're going to hurt the other one. One may want the animal because that was the first one they brought into the relationship. You go through all those different situations, and it's like, so you can, and I recommend that you have an understanding that whatever decision you make, like you would with your children. And that's what happens, unfortunately, in child custody cases, is one parent wants to hurt the other.
Right.
They fly out of the country, they deny them rights, visitation rights. And it's like, is that the best for the child? In this respect is, what's the best for the pet? So if you can come to a resolution was what's the best for your pet, right? And so you're going to have set up no different. There's schedules you set up, and once they stay maybe 1 week at my house, 1 week at your house, you flip the holidays, but everything has to be identified. If the animal's microchipped, both have access, and both names should be on the registration form. If they're in the hospital, then you continue with the same doctor, but they both have the shared rights to treat. You don't have one not saying you can't treat and one saying you can, because that's unfair to the pet, right?
Yeah.
So, and then whatever you do on the domestic side, start fresh. Get 2 brand new food bowls, 2 brand new water bowls, 2 brand new beds, 2 brand new toys, 2 brand new thing, and they're equal between the parties. And so the pet really doesn't, the nice part about dogs is you can walk out of your house, go to the mailbox, come back, and they'll think you're gone for 2.5 years. They have no clue of time. So that's why they get crazy and they're so excited. You go, I just saw you like 30 seconds ago. I don't care. They don't evaluate that. But they will be going into a new environment. So auditorily wise and smells and everything will be different. So one may go through that, but they'll identify and bond really quickly with their environment. It's just putting the pet first, and whatever you have documented, get an understanding that it's shared. So whatever you need to do that, get it done. And I'm on my 2nd edition now in a book called What About Wally?
Right.
And that really addresses the fact, okay, I'm not paying for the pet insurance that we have now. I don't believe in it. Okay, so let's get down to the primary question.
Right.
Is that good for the pet? Right?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Do you want to split it? No. I'll tell you what, you pay for all the food and I'll pay for the insurance this month. Does that work? Works for me. Best for the pet.
Yeah.
So everything has to be different. The only thing I would highly recommend when you come to that kind of resolution is make sure everyone has duplicate copies
Yeah.
of anything in regards to medical records, city licenses. If you have cats, same thing with the dogs. Brand new collar, same bell. New litter boxes, identical scratch posts. So they feel comfort, and then all the attention still is on that parent. And it'd be up to us as parents to be responsible. Look, I went through a 2nd divorce, and my at the time, my wife says, I'm taking Winnie, and I said, guess what? You're not, and here's why. I said, you get situated, you get everything taken care of, you make sure that you don't have temporary with a friend's couch or whatever, and once you settle in, not a problem. But until then, no, because it's not in the best interest of the pet. Long story short, she was with me for 13 years. It's just, you learn, right? So, and most of the book that I had written was based on my first divorce, and that's why it stimulated the idea of writing that kind of book, because it's not addressed. Now it's just, go ahead and file in pet custody lawyers, exploded. So that's good. But it comes down to understanding each person's personal responsibility in the best quality for your pet. And just because you broke up doesn't mean that you cause a breakup in time or relationship with your pet. Same with children.
Yeah.
Just listen, I have a daughter now who's 24. I have not missed one event. I have not, no matter what went on in my life, I have not missed taking her to one place or another, whether it's dance, whether it's tennis, whether it's school or events or plays. It's just like, that's a priority. And it's so, did it break my heart when we split? Absolutely. But I was there. She wasn't even, she was already in school, in elementary school. But I got up, and I took her to school every day, and nothing changed habitually, except I didn't sleep in the house. So uh, it's just a matter how you deal with it, you know.
That
And
makes a lot, that makes a lot of sense. I was actually just thinking about a friend of mine that lives in a nearby suburb and everything. Was not that nearby because it's in Wake Forest, which is on the other side of Raleigh. But they had a dog that was definitely had some issues in terms of their sight and everything. So they knew that the dog would literally be running into the walls all the time. And recently they had to lay that dog to rest, as we were talking about earlier, and everything. But definitely that because of its sight problems, and I think it had some other issues. It was just known that as it aged and dealt with those issues, that it was going to provide some comic relief to the family in a kind of sad but yet poignant way, because they knew that that's what the dog was going to do and everything. And that's even kind of like with cats. And I do know that some people love to get, and I think that some of the cats in my mind are looking at you like, why are you even bringing that here? I know that game. I know what that is for and everything. But most cats that I know, and like I said, I've had a few, if you get those lovely little pointers and you try to point the little laser pointers, they will play the game for a while. And then after a while, they're like, I'm done. I know the game. The game is over. I'm not playing the game anymore because I understand the game. So it's like a novel toy maybe when you first get it, but after a while, they recognize the game and they are done with the game from what I've observed and everything. Hey, Martin, just really quickly, and Stephen kind of alluded to it, and we still got about another 19 to 20 minutes to go and everything, but I was just wondering your thoughts about the work-life balance, because that's something that oftentimes talked about on this show and other shows as well. And I do know that there's only 24 hours in a day, even though some of us wish there were 36, and there's only a certain amount of sleep, because like as we were talking earlier about the mattress, we all want to try to get at least, I think the minimum is 6 to 7, even though some people try to operate off of 3 and 4 and everything. But I was just wondering your thoughts about the work-life balance and how you manage that work-life balance. And are there times that you don't see the mattress as much as you would like to see the mattress, even though you sell mattresses and all in that space?
It's like Steven said, I'm getting better, right? I think that's like my philosophy is so I love that too, Steven. It's just getting better all the time. And me 10 years ago, my work-life balance was terrible. And to your point earlier, Mark, I could never say the no word ever. I was like, I would say yes to every single, I mean, indiscriminate to everybody, whether they're a stranger, a boss, a friend, a partner, anything. And the older I've gotten, and just again, a lot of therapy, I've gotten so much better at answering the hardest question is, do I want to do this? Because you got to get should and could out of the way. Right. And so, right. And that comes into work where I want to be Johnny on the spot. Like I want to be that person that people can rely on at work. I want to be the kind of friend that people can rely on. And that's, I think it's a good quality, right? To be that kind of person in someone's life, but not to the point where you're like giving only a part of yourself. Like I want to be there, like you said, or you're saying too, like, I want to be there in the now with someone. It's like, all right, if I'm going to be there for you, I'm going to be there all the way. You know, like if you're having a hard time, I'm there. I'm not checking my phone. I'm not somewhere else, you know? So work-life balance has gotten a lot better, Mark, where I try to like set a time. And after that, it's like, I don't check my work email. And thankfully I'm in a position now where I work in a place where I'm not getting bombarded after hours. So I'm lucky to be in a place where I don't have to put up stringent boundaries as much as I had at my first job at a grad school. No boundaries. I mean, I'm working nights, I'm working weekends, I'm doing whatever for very little pay. And I'm very lucky to be where I am and where I'm respected and treated well by my superiors as well. So that's how I do it is also when I have to boundaries, like, nope, this is, you know, if I have other stuff that I'm working on that's more important to me, I will say that I'm better at it, but not perfect, not quite there yet. So,
and then those same kind of notices. I was on a call yesterday. It was a MailChimp call, and it was one of those fireside chats between Soledad O'Brien and Tyler Perry and everything. And actually, one of my jobs gave me an invitation to sign up and to check the conversation, but they had several people that were asking questions that were picked from the audience that were in different businesses. I think there was a couple that had their own automated grocery store. So literally it was an automated kind of AI type grocery store and everything. But there was a gentleman that literally was there in the mailroom and was now designing some of the furniture. So actually both Tyler and I think Soledad were praising the furniture. So even though he started at a lower level, he is now respected. As a matter of fact, when he got up to ask the question, I think he was the last one to ask the question, he got a rousing ovation, almost as rousing as Tyler did and everything. So you could see that he had respect among his coworkers and everything, but he was literally one of those starting from the bottom kind of story. So for the both of you, how important do you think it is to recognize that maybe you don't have as many limitations as you think you do, and you can even start in, say, a mailroom or a clerking room or some other kind of position like a janitor, and maybe even make it in your business? I'm thinking that maybe even you, Stephen, might have seen some people that were working for you as assistants that are now having their own veterinarian practices. And I don't know enough about you to know that that is the case, but I can imagine that would be the case and all along those lines. So how important do you think it is for people to recognize that while they might be starting at the bottom, if they've got that go-getter attitude, they can make it to be the successes like this particular gentleman was? Because I think he's got his own furniture design company, if I heard correctly, and all in that space.
You know, it's interesting. To answer your question of it's passion. Okay, so if I go back and look when I entered into the veterinary industry in 1976, that was my job. I picked up poop, I cleaned cages, and I ran with a bucket with a urine catch for urinalysis, and I cleaned the animals, washed them, and you know, it is. I did the fecal samples. I didn't do them then. I just obtained the fecal samples, and I've learned one thing: whatever my status may be today, regarding what my clients uh, want from me, I am not above picking up poop. Period. If you remember that, then that for me, it centers me. And I then can say, all right, if I do it, and it's an example. B, it's easy to say, hey, if I go into a facility now that I'm working with, okay, so I'll give you a real life story. And I'll say, so how long has that poop been out there? And this was like, I don't know, 4 feet from the front door. How long's it been out there? I said, I don't know. I said, is it supposed to be out there? No. I said, well, let me ask you another question. Who's responsible for that being outside? Because all the client knows is they're going to pull up and see it. The dog may sniff it. The cat's in a carrier. So who's responsible? And there wasn't an answer. I said, I'll tell you what, I am. Okay? I am. You are. The doctors are. Everyone is. It's not a designated job. So going through different levels and finding roadmaps to increase your career path is only going to be successful if you remain where you first started.
Okay.
And that's the best I can share with you. And I do that when I do my management consulting, both for human and healthcare as well as veterinary healthcare. You're too good. I just went through a lovely colonoscopy, and I realize these attributes. The board certified gastroenterologist is just stellar. Just long term, huge, just more letters after his name than the alphabet. Written books, the whole thing. So I know. I already know his character defects, right? So for me, I understand them. Like Martin, when you can already see and identify, it's easy to judge, but you can spot. Oh, okay. So this is how I'm going to deal with this situation. So I get in for the procedure, and he says, "Good morning." That's it. But the anesthesiologist is an MD is just saying, "Oh, how you doing? Everything okay?" Blah 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 blah. So I'm looking at this like complete change here. One is above what they think is, it's too big for me to engage the patient. I'm just going to do what I need to do and do it 100% right, which is what I want, right? And then there's one that says, I'm going to engage. And you're going to get the best, and we're not going to lose you, so don't worry. And, so it comes to understanding that when I work with a practice, let's say today, everyone goes, there's no I in team, and, those are words, right? You don't show the examples, then you don't get results. You don't show the action, then you don't get the results. You don't, I to this day, the first thing I'll say is like, if it comes to me where I pick it up, I go, "Do we know who this is? Do we need a fecal sample?" Because check the file, right? Which causes them to go, "Oh, what?" It's all in the way you handle it. It's and it's part of understanding how you bring that team in to help you grow. If I don't like today, I'm really, as I told you in my email, when I say I'm humble and I'm grateful, I really am. And to be here, and that is something that is deep rooted for me. I mean, you made time to reach, I make time, and that's all we have. So if we don't move into that same direction in terms of understanding what needs to be done for the hospital, for the patient, and for the clients, we are running like that. And so not everyone understands that. So the question becomes basic psychology 101. You don't want to manipulate, but I think everyone can identify with, tell you what, if this was not just your hospital, and you're not just getting a percentage or a buy-in package or whatever it may be, at any job role level, if this was your pet, would you internally really accept what's going on? Would you like to walk in next? No. I go, then you answered the question. There's no more training involved.
Yeah, that makes a
Right?
lot of sense. That
Right.
makes a whole lot of sense.
Simple.
It's golden rule stuff,
Right.
right? Yeah,
Right.
it's just
Yeah.
cuts through everything, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally golden rule and everything. Hey, Martin, just really quickly, I'm thinking that there were times that even add mattress clarity and all along those lines. And by the way, because I've got a permission from the network to pretty much grab everything along those lines, and I did see that you have YouTube clips. So if it's all right for you, I will grab some of those mattress clips and we'll throw them on Pod TV and all along those lines. But I have to ask you first and everything. So if it's all right with you, I'll grab them and we'll throw them on as a advertisement of what you're doing and all that, because I did see the clips and all in that space as I was doing research.
No problem.
Cool. Well, consider it done. It is done. So we'll definitely have that going on as well and everything. But that being said, there 10 times there are certain jobs, and we only got about a few more minutes because I've got to, speaking of work-life balance, got to get ready to run to my next job and all into that space. But that being said, are there times that you have run into this conversation as well, where there have been folks that are, maybe it was a job that you were thinking was lesser than, but you saw the importance of the job, and maybe somebody else didn't see the importance of the job, and that's why you are where you are in everything?
It's a great question, and I love the way you put it too, Stephen. I think that my grandfather was the classic bootstrap story. I mean, he came over from Sweden, basically no penny to his name. Started in this. I think times were different. It was a different path then, but this was the 1920s, and started at this factory, and then ended up owning it. And I think that what you said, I think passion is that comes through, and I also think. I worked in bars for years. I was a bartender, and I learned so much about people. I think more that restaurants were just the best anthropological study you could ever ask for. And what I loved was the best bosses I had were servant leaders. And they were not, oh my gosh, the bar's busy. It's, I'm going back behind the bar to serve drinks. Right. It's just that jump. And also kind of what you're getting at too, Stephen. I think not just remembering that you were at your lowest, but having a boss who's been at every level. I have so much more respect for them than someone who jumped the line, has never done any of the work of the people that they're training and teaching, right? It's always that weird thing where it's like, I don't think you even know what I do for my day job. And to get direction from them, there's a lack of respect, that goes both ways. And so I think I love the best bosses I've ever had. One of my best was at a bar in Atlanta. My friend John, we're still close. I haven't worked there for 9 years, and he comes to Austin. We hang out. We're still super close because whenever we also saw each other at our worst, when things are busy, it's crazy. It's during World Cup, and you have 1 million customers, and you both keep your head, and he throws in where he needs to. I think that's what I always think of when I think of like servant leadership, and that's kind of the ideal.
No, I agree with you on that and everything. Even that servant leadership, while there are some people that are not the biggest fan of this particular lady that I'm going to mention and everything, but before I get to that, I will even say to your thing that you said with your father's or grandfather's attitude. That was actually my grandmother's attitude, because she actually started the first African American library in Raleigh in the early 1940s
Wow.
or
Nice.
1950s and everything. And she literally was walking down the streets, collecting money in order to build that library, which is still existing to this day and everything. But the person I'm going to mention that some people are not that big of a fan of, and all along those lines, is one of the reasons, and like I said, she has faults just like everybody else has faults, that I actually personally admire AOC, is because AOC literally, I think, brought some of that work environment that she learned in the bar into the Congress and into everything else. So while some of the Republicans and some of the ultra conservatives may not like her, I think that she brings some of that knowledge into what she does, even in the legislature, because she was definitely a basic barback, from my understanding of it. Everything, she was not a owner of the bar. She was basically working the bar, and then saw some opportunities to be a leader in the community from that bar opportunity that she has taken and has been running with ever since. So that's one of the reasons that I actually admire her, even though others may not admire her as much and everything. Like I said,
I'm a huge fan, Mark. So you got me.
Yeah.
I love AOC.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, definitely a fan of what she does and all in that space. Like I said, the show runs about an hour and a half, so we're getting ready to wind down. So I definitely want to give both you and Stephen a chance to close out with, as I did Calvin, where you can be reached. And I hope that both of you will make a return trip, because I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation and everything, and hope that you will make a return trip. And like I said, the online dinner party, this is what this is. We just sit back as if we're at a dinner at our houses and learning about each other and having fun with the conversation. So I hope that y'all enjoyed it, just like I hope Calvin did, even though he had to duck out early and everything. But I hope that both of you will make a return trip, just like Calvin will also. And I send that to everybody, but definitely to the two of you. So I'll start with you, Martin, and close out with Stephen. But if you want to tell how you can be reached, and also where your message of positivity and hope, and you might see me go off screen, because I've got to do that thing called throw on some shoes and another shirt and everything. So definitely, if you would do that, I would appreciate that.
Sounds great. Well, great to be with you, Mark and Stephen. This was a blast to chat and hear about your background. For me, you can find me at Martin Carlson on Instagram. It's the best place to message me. You can also find all my videos on the Mattress Clarity YouTube channel. So I am all over that, hundreds of videos. But my message of positivity, I think, is ask for help. I think is my number one thing. And it's something that took me a long time to get to. It's amazing how just talking to someone, and you were mentioning, Stephen, the just the difficulties of people in your profession during and after, and now recently. And I have a cousin who works on a suicide hotline, and it's just asking for help when you need it, and also goes both ways. Check on your friends, check on your people, check on the most vulnerable in your community. So I think that's my message of positivity, and that most people are willing to help and to share that love. So I'll pass it to you, Stephen.
Well, thank you. I love it, Martin. So I can share for me in terms of passing up the positivity tip on to others. The way I look in the mirror, and sometimes I'm not happy with who I see, and sometimes I'm like, man, I look good today. But every day when I do that, I take the time. I say, what can I do of service today? Because that's all I got. What can I do of service? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, doesn't matter. If you walk down the street, you see the meter's going to expire, but the car's still sitting there, drop a dime, quarter, do it. And if someone is, like you said, be available. You need to be available. So it's the old horrible givers gain, takers lose. But the reality is, if I could really be of service, I know it's not a matter of return. I know that I'm going to be, my mindset will be reset on that positive roadmap that I look for. So that's all I can pass on that one. Yeah.
No, I love it. I had some friends a couple months ago. They needed something really quick, and I jumped out of work and did it, and it just felt great. Everything else passed, I cleared away, right? So I totally agree.
No, just really quickly, and along those same lines, as we're walking out the door, what advice would you give? Because you kind of alluded to it, Martin, to our young people, because a lot of our young people are so caught up in the notion of the computer. And I do remember the old computer, because when I was at Marquette, go Marquette, we're number 4 in the country now, and all along those lines, even though we got that big game against Connecticut and all in that space, and they are the number 2 team in the country. So who knows? Maybe we'll climb up in the rankings and we can beat them and all. But that is on Saturday. But we do know a lot of our kids and the young people, and like I said, I don't have any of my own, but I do have my two nephews are glued to that devices, whether it's the phone or the Oculus set, and all along those lines. So what advice would you give to folks that are dealing with the young people, particularly as the young people are being bullied sometimes on the social media and all along those lines? So what advice would you give to our young folks?
Oh man, that's a good question and a really important one. And if I'm not the one to answer, hopefully, but I think that I'm lucky that I didn't grow up in a time we had social media, but it wasn't until I was in college, and I can only having nephew and a niece and people in this new generation. I can imagine. I think a big thing would be to find the support in the real world too, and to like. There is just nothing that can feel like everything online. And even I can get wrapped up in that when you're like getting wrapped in that dopamine hit of like likes. And even if it's less on the bullying side, I'm more like just wanting that kind of affirmation, but finding it in the real world and kind of escaping and giving the time for real connection and real kind of socialization can go a long way. But again, I think I'm probably not the expert to speak on it, but that's been my experience when I've dealt with kind of online pushback and things like that.
Just really quickly, what are your thoughts on that, Stephen, and everything? And like I said, after that, we'll wrap up the show with a couple of commercials, including one from a friend of mine that has a food source about natural food and all. It's actually got some natural desserts. So I think we'll end with the natural dessert ones that's on this platform and everything. But what is your thought about social media, and what advice do you give to some of the young people in your life? Because I do know that they can get caught up in it and everything.
Yeah, in terms for young people with social media, there's so many pieces to that pie in terms of personal and professional and parental involvement. But it's if they're young and they're just gonna. I mean, I went through it. My daughter grew up in the generation that by the age of 6 she got a smartphone. I didn't have that. It wasn't even developed when she was born. So it's allowing them access, and but there's also, which I had a talk, so I share this with all the other parents and pet parents out there. There's a whole world out there, and this is only one part of it. And when they realize, as I worked with my as a parent with my child, I said, so let me ask you a question. Well, I was always really positive. I said, how much time you spend on your phone? I know I'm paying the bill, right? I said, you miss your friends? No, I talk to them on the line all the time. I said, do you miss going outside the house? She goes, yeah. I said, let's just flip that. Let's see what the real world's about, because you're getting signals about that may not be true. Right. And gossip is one of the biggest weapons besides direct hostility and bullying. Gossip is just dangerous. And my daughter, she'll call me up and she'll just vent. Well, this, blah, 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 I can't. I said, and you believe that's real? No. Okay. So move on. Next.
Yep.
That's the reaction about, do I get enough hits? Do I get enough validation? Is it instant gratification? What do you think? Because of a post that came in, then she posted. I said, you're going to get that. I get that. I got 1.5 million fans on one social media site. I get it all the time. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you on that and everything. And as we're heading out the door and all along those lines, I was teased both of you because one thing I do remember is, as I mentioned, Marquette, I do remember that going to school in the 80s, because Doc Rivers, who's now the coach of the Bucks, was there when I was there and everything. And that being said, we did have those big mainframe computers that were in the office and all along those lines. So it was the big computer that you had to go down to find it and all that, because it was in a big room, about maybe the size of my bedroom or something along those lines. So definitely this whole notion of the laptop, which is what I'm doing this show from, and a number of other things, including that phone that you were talking about, is definitely modern technology that we did not necessarily have even as recently as the early 80s and the late 70s. So this is definitely some new technology that we are seeing. But yeah, some of us that are in our 60s and even some that are in the 50s can remember the day of having to go to a computer. And this might be before your time, Martin, but going to it's literally a computer that is in a room. so the computer was in the room and everything. So we definitely remember that if you're of a certain age and everything. So that being said, let's watch this commercial from this friend that talks about this natural dessert. It'll make y'all very hungry because I know every time I play it, it makes me hungry, but it is all natural goods and everything. And then we'll use that to get on out of here. But like I said, this has been a fun conversation and look forward to having both of you back in the near future.
Thanks, Mark, very much.
No problem.
Hi, my name is Maria Jones, baker and owner of Very Vegan, a premier mobile bakery specializing in putting a plant-based spin on some of your favorite desserts. Inspired by my own personal experience with my journey with healthier eating habits, I was determined to make comparable items with desirable textures and great taste. We're always experimenting with different flavor profiles and expanding our menu. I enjoy my creative license as well as imparting ideas and requests from my customers. It makes for new and exciting items. Some of our customer faves are the specialty cheesecakes such as the banana pudding with homemade vegan vanilla wafers, strawberry crunch, honey bun, fruity pebbles, peach cobbler, and many others. We also offer moist, rich cupcakes, delectable cookies, decadent brownies, and scrumptious pound cake. Discover how amazingly delicious vegan can be. I am available for orders, or you can purchase my items exclusively at the Black Farmers Hub.